Three Wishes is definitely very creative. This is the second installment in the Barney in the Backyard Gang direct-to-video series. This was released originally in 1988. And as usual, I will talk about various things that I enjoyed and mention some highlights. As I mentioned in my last Backyard Gang discussion, I don't think I'd ever seen this. I grew up watching a lot of Barney and Friends. I have no recollections of Barney in the Backyard Gang, so I'm really enjoying exploring it, seeing what it's like. It's not triggering any specific memories yet, but certainly some of the songs are quite nostalgic. And this starts off really brilliantly with the children all declaring that they're bored, they don't know what to do, so their mother is very proactive in trying to entertain them, and she sings "Do Your Ears Hang Low?" And I have to say, I felt like a bit of an idiot because she told them to stick out their tongue and touch their nose. And she said, there's an easier way to do this. And I was thinking, what's the easier way? And then she explained that, well, she showed that you stick out your tongue and then use your finger to touch your nose. And I felt like such an idiot because that thought just didn't occur to me. Then the children realize that they can bring Barney to life and use their imagination to play pretend. And there is one quote in this that I don't necessarily like, and it's the quote, "Love makes pretend things real." I don't know if I agree with that. I don't really think it makes a lot of sense either. Plus, pretend things aren't necessarily always nice. For example, monsters, you can play pretend scary games. There's not a lot of love in that, unless they mean the love of the game and the love of imagination. But I definitely think they were saying the love of Barney there. So I don't agree with that specifically, but everything else is brilliant. And Barney decides to grant them 3 wishes so they can go to 3 places. I don't know why he needed to grant them wishes. I don't think that should have worked because imagination isn't restricted to 3 wishes. So that's also something that I think was a bit of an oversight because it's kind of suggesting that if you use your imagination, there are limitations and you can only go to 3 places and that's it and you can't go anymore. So again, that was something that doesn't make a lot of sense. It is the title of the episode or the special, and I do feel like that was a bad decision. But everything else, and I say this hopefully I'm not going to contradict myself again, everything else worked out well. And they go to 3 places. The first is a fun park, whatever that is. I thought by the term, I thought they'd mean a theme park, but actually it's just a park where they can play ball and go on climbing frames and things. And we have some animated backdrops that are very interesting. Definitely a product of the 80s, but it works. It works well enough. It's not the same quality that we get with Barney and Friends, but it's still not too bad. And then after the fun park, they go to the moon. They meet an alien. I think the alien had a really fun design. The lighting was quite dim in this segment, and I think they could have made it a little bit brighter and a little bit more visually engaging. But in general, it was not too bad and definitely a very different kind of place to the fun park. And then the third place is the place I'd want to go to the most, and it's called a petting farm, which is basically a place where they can meet these different animals and pet them, and they're absolutely adorable, and I had a lot of fun with that. It was very, very sweet. It's a little bit harder to use your imagination that you're at a petting farm, but if you have soft toys, I guess you could pretend the toys are the animals, or indeed if you have pets, as long as you're careful, of course. So 3 very different places. I think it gave us a really great variety. Everything was edited together really well. Sure, I think saying 3 wishes definitely suggested that their imagination was limited and that it was basically confined to those 3 wishes, and after that they had to put their imagination away, which is not a great message. But aside from that, the concept of visiting different places I thought worked really well. And of course we have some great songs. Some personal highlights. There were a couple of songs that I didn't recognise. I don't know if they're just songs that I'd never heard of or if there were songs specifically created for Backyard Gang. Please feel free to, explain if you know anything about that. But songs that I particularly liked were, well, the aforementioned "Do Your Ears Hang Low," Teddy Bear, "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," which I hadn't expected to be in this, and "Old MacDonald Had a Farm," which is always one that takes me straight back to my childhood. That is, of course, a childhood classic that I rather loved. So In all, it's not too bad. There are a lot of great things in this, a lot of great messages, and it's definitely full of fun and imagination. And I also want to point out, I've just realised this says it was released in 1989 on IMDb. And on fandom.com it says 1988. So I apologise if I get that incorrect in the title. Again, if you can confirm either way, please feel free to let me know. It definitely has a lot to offer. It's not perfect, but at the end of the day, Three Wishes is fun, it's educational, it definitely celebrates the imagination. Still getting used to this design of Barney, but I'm getting used to the voice. The voice is slightly different to Barney and Friends Barney, but I'm definitely getting used to it. I think it's starting to sound more familiar. But yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing with this series to see what it's like. Still no specific memories triggered for me, but with some great songs and of course the presence of Barney the Dinosaur, it still feels very nostalgic.